So I'm Alfie.
Hi, I'm Molly.
And we're the producers of Doc Theatre Productions. So our new interest, our new venture is industry insights. So we are bringing on people within our music, theatre, event and entertainment world to talk about how COVID has affected us as creatives and how we're muddling through as best we can. So our first person that we'd like to introduce to everyone is Max Emmerson. So Max, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Hi everyone, I'm Max Emmerson. I'm a theatre producer. I've been for 5 years now. I work across a whole roster of different companies in different positions, and I've worked as a venue producer and a freelance producer.
Brilliant. So during this time, of course, am I right in saying that you're still a freelance producer at the moment in time?
I am indeed. I'm one of the, I would say, lucky ones, I guess, in that, although some work has dried up, I've been creative with some of the work we can do, and have done some work online in digital formats, which has been quite new for me in terms of my artistic output. And it's been a time to develop work as well, where we've not allowed to have shows on. So we've been doing, research and development weeks on plays and new musicals and so on through the medium of Zoom, which is very different.
Yes, it is, definitely. I feel like a lot of theatre producers, we're all hands-on people. So we're used to being sat in meetings and sat in creative
being in the theatre as well, or being in a venue, as opposed to no interaction with anyone as well, which is kind of weird.
And I wouldn't necessarily say we're the most techie of people, because we have a fantastic tech team that work on every show with us, so they tend to deal with that. So I think for everyone, it's been a bit of a learning curve in the industry, especially in the digital sense. So in terms of your work hasn't dried up, you are the associate producer of Box of Tricks Theatre Company, and still the producer of Emmerson Ward, I'm assuming.
That's correct, yeah.
So going to Box of Tricks, tell us about the company, tell us what it is, what you do.
Yeah, so Box Tricks as a company has been running for 14 years now. It was founded by Adam Qualley and Hannah Tyrrell-Pinder. They founded it in London and then made the move up to the north to Manchester about 7 years ago. I've been with the company now for just under 3 years, and they are a new writing company, specifically working on a commissioning model. So we find writers that we like, mostly from the north, and we commission them, and we conceptualize that idea from the very seed to opening night. So we don't normally take unsolicited scripts and then put them on. It's all about us being part of that creative process. So yeah.
Yeah, so under Box of Tricks, there's a new scheme, the Screenplay Award, that's in partnership with Sky Studios.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we've seen a bit about it on Twitter, but obviously we don't know that much about it. And am I right we're right in thinking that that's a new partnership to get writers and get their work out there digitally, or is it for the stage?
It's a bit of both, actually. I mean, it is a new partnership, as you say. It's come out of conversations that we've had for many years of Sky coming to see our sort of early career writers. But this was the first time we've physically worked together on a project, and we had the idea about sort of championing underrepresented groups and helping those writers get to stages, specifically northern writers from underrepresented groups, and Sky were kind of to be sort of our partner on it, and has donated the award fee for 2 writers, and effectively what the prize will give, and we'll be announcing the winners in January. The 2 winners will get a fee of £10,250 each. And that will be the money used to commission a 70-minute stage play and a 20-minute screenplay. So they'll have that experience of working with us as we normally do in a normal commissioning model. We're working with them to develop that idea that they've pitched to us, and then working with us and with Sky to create a screenplay. And it's sort of our first steps into TV and screen. We've had some little experiences and some conversations about it, but this is moving forward as we've seen with this year. Everything's online. We're diversifying how we take our media and also how we make it as well. So it felt like a good fit, and I think it's something that will probably continue in the future. So yeah, it's quite exciting. So
you said that it's been in talks for a while. Did lockdown push it forward and make it happen quicker? Because obviously you couldn't produce anything on the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had different conversations with Sky, and normally what happens is every January we'll perform a Playbox takeover day at Home Theatre in Manchester, where we go and present some of the readings of the work of our current Playbox cohort. And obviously that won't be happening this year, and we're still developing work at the same time. So we got in touch with Sky and said, this is the time when writers need something to keep them going, and something to feel valued and appreciated, and especially with those underrepresented groups who don't ordinarily get those opportunities to work with a big TV company. So it was about finding the opportunity, and this felt like that right project, especially during this time, when there isn't much work happening. Yeah.
No. Going with what you were saying about representing underrepresented groups, you are Northern yourself, as well as us. And obviously within LIPA, I mean, you're a LIPA graduate, so and within LIPA, there's only a very small amount of us Northerners really within the institution. So Box of Tricks moved from London to Manchester. Was that an artistic idea, or?
Yeah, I think so. That was before my time, but the way Adam and Hannah talk about it was effectively they were an associate company at a couple of pub theatres in London, and I think they would find it difficult to sort of break out of that, and get to that next level and start, touring work and producing work on a more regional scale. So their move up to Manchester allowed them to, make all these new connections with some of the bigger venues that are, more used to working with lots of different companies. I think what traditionally happens in London is there's a very small pot of very few producers that kind of have, a monopoly over the venues maybe, and it's harder for those smaller companies to break out. So when they came to Manchester and now we've got so many great relationships with every venue, and in my time in the past 2 years, we've co-produced with Home Theatre, we've co-produced with the Lowry, we've partnered with Oldham Coliseum and with Sale Waterside. So it means that actually there's now a lot more opportunity to work with different people, and it's quite refreshing. And it means that some projects will be better at other venues. So it's just creatively, I think, opened the door a bit more for us. And obviously, as a Northerner in London, it's like a very small fish in a very big pond. So you worked in London yourself, I'm assuming. I did, yeah. That was my first graduate job, actually. That I got just as I was leaving LIPA. I was fortunate enough to take part in the Stage 1 New Producer Scheme in the May of the year I was graduating. And then from there, I applied for their apprenticeship scheme. And I got into the pool of that, and then got a job and started at Bill Kenwright Productions in London. So I started there in September. So I was very fortunate to jump straight into postgraduate life with a job, and it was in London. And it was brilliant and amazing and quite the experience. But yeah, quite a big change from, small Liverpool where you know everyone and know the whole scene to big old London where there's, there's so much going on all the time. So yeah, it was quite a change. So obviously Liverpool's in tier 2, which we're quite lucky, but Manchester unfortunately is still in tier 3. And when we release this interview, hopefully you won't be, and you'll be back in tier 2 where you can do shows. Did Box of Tricks have anything for Christmas lined up? I know obviously pantos are big, and Christmas Carol seems to be being performed everywhere this year. Yeah, I mean, for us, the pandemic as a whole, it's been tricky because we were midway through a tour in March when we had to cancel. So the last Quiz Night on Earth was our touring show that was It was a rural tour, a hybrid rural tour. So it went to some regional venues in some cities, and then out in the sticks to community centres, working men's clubs, things like that. And that tour got cut short by about 4 weeks. So it was a massive shame. And we've been thinking about how do we bring it back, because it was so successful and celebratory and just fun. It was a play set around a quiz night that you actually take part in the quiz. So it just really great experience, of very good sort of community experience as well. And actually what we've done for Christmas this year, it'll be on next weekend, it'll be the 11th and 12th of December. We're bringing the show back, but as Last Quizmas. Bit of a play on words, and it's going to be a online Zoom experience that you buy tickets to, and you do the quiz virtually, and you can have virtual quiz teams, and it'll be the same characters and the same actors who were in our tour, but with a new story. And this time we'll be talking about the pandemic and about Christmas and Christmas spirit and things like that. So that was never, we might have relaunched the tour in person, but actually this is a whole new idea. And we wanted to do something fun for Christmas, and it was lighthearted and for all the families, it were. So yeah, that's been it's our first sort of step into the digital realm with this. And yeah, it's been a big, steep learning curve, which has been very interesting. I'm learning a lot every day. So yeah, it's all good.
And have you found that, I know that for us, definitely, that Zoom has helped, because everyone's in different parts of the country at the minute. And, especially when you're working in London, or you live up north and you've got to go to London for an interview or for a creative meeting, you've got to obviously pay for a train, you've got to pay for travel. So have you found this an easier way to connect with creatives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it almost feels like it should have always been this way. I've just worked on a project for Emmerson Award where we just developed a new play, and, we've had some absolutely brilliant creatives on that project that never would normally be able to do that project, because the project will be taking place and happening in Cumbria in its next stages. And, it's just people in London who live in London, they're not going to be able to travel, or, they're probably going to say no to a project like that. But doing it online, everyone's doing it from the comfort of their own homes. We've had people who are in other countries taking part in the research and development. So again, it's unlocked a whole new level of creativity and opportunity for working with new people, working with people internationally. If we're all having to stare at screens, it's not like there's just one person, it's an anomaly. So it works for everyone. So yeah. Well,
moving on to the R&D project, are you able to tell us any more of that under Emmerson Award?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an idea that I was basically sent a little bit of a scene from a friend of a friend, passed it on and said, my friend's a writer, she's an actor, she performed at the National Theatre last year, and she's got like some scenes of an idea. Would you take a read? Just give her a little bit of feedback, sort of thing. I read it and I fell in love with it and got to meet the writer and get to know her. And that's Daneka, Etchells. And we've now been working together. I mean, it's quite a short relationship, actually. Normally, I've come in commissioning new writers that we've been working with for a few years, but in this instance, we met, we had a great energy. We really liked this story and wanted to tell it. So we commissioned her there then and said, okay, let's get you writing this play. We applied for some Arts Council money. We got the Arts Council funds to be able to develop it digitally, and we did it over the course of 3 weeks, and we just finished that at the end of September. We did it sort of part-time over 3 weeks because we thought, normally in an R&D period, you'd be either 1 or 2 weeks in the room, but being 1 week full-time on Zoom is exhausting. So we did it, a couple of hours every day over a 3 week period. And it was actually a really wonderful experience. And we found it worked really well. Specifically with that project though, it's a one-woman show. So actually, if you had 4 or 5 actors, in the room and with the script, I think that it's going to be a lot trickier. And that's what we're going to experience next week as we go into rehearsals for Last Quizmas. So that, it's a cast of 4. So it'll be interesting to see, how you direct and move people around the space per se, as opposed to one person. So it wasn't so hard with just one person, but I think with imagine a musical or a whole ensemble, I think that's where it would start to get really tricky.
Yeah. So obviously Last Quizmas, so are you having to get each of the actors to film it separately and then you've got to edit it all together, or?
That was one idea, and we sort of started with that idea because we thought we could probably make something quite nice and do a nice edit on it. And then actually what we decided was, with the element of it being a quiz and the tour that was out, physically in March, there was that interactiveness with the audience. So we decided, actually, no, we want to do it fully live streamed and live performed. So that's how the direction we're going with it. So, I mean, undoubtedly, I'm sure there will be some hiccups and there will be some technical faults during the performance. We're hoping to iron those out, and we've had a lot of technical meetings already about it, and and technical support and how we can deal with that when you have an audience. Because effectively we'll have about 75 people logging onto Zoom, and their cameras will be off, but then there'll be 4 cameras on of the actors, and managing that whole thing from the back end is going to be quite tricky, but we're really excited for the challenge, and it's just nice to be able to offer something for Christmas,
Yeah. From obviously a management point of view and running of a company, the show was out on tour, so it was filling audiences, making money. Yeah. The switch to digitally, I think every company has found that it's a lot harder to do anything financially, and everyone's taking cuts. So how has Box of Tricks and Emmerson Ward found that? Obviously, because
I think that is absolutely probably the biggest problem that commercial producers are having. I mean, thankfully we are subsidised, so we're supported by the Arts Council on each project. We're project grant funded, so it means that actually, as long as the outcomes and the output is there, and that we are reaching audiences, whether it's digitally or physically, as long as people get paid what they absolutely should be, the UK theatre rates, for instance, they're happy, and because those projects and most of my work is subsidised, it means that actually we don't need to rely as much on those big ticket paying audiences. And one thing that's been quite unusual actually that we found is that we've seen, obviously everyone's doing a lot of digital work. I'm sure we've all watched a lot of live streams this year. Some stuff has been free, and that's been great, from the National Theatre and so on. And then some of the smaller companies, they are either putting tickets out at £5 or £10 or pay what you decide. And we decided to do a pay what you decide model. As a bit of a test, really. We realised that there was some money that we'd raised this year through a campaign that was going to be able to pay for the production, even if we didn't sell a ticket. So we decided to go with the pay what you decide model, with a suggested donation of £8 and a minimum donation of £1. And what we found is the average ticket donation so far is like nearly £10. So people are actually paying more because they can and because they want to. So it's a very interesting way of working. I'm not sure how that would work on a larger scale, for instance, like with a musical, or when you need to get 1,000 people a night tuning in, but it's working, and actually for us as this little pilot, it's given us some faith that this is maybe how we can run shows in the future. I think
everyone's just dying to get their hands on any piece of theatre at the minute. So I mean, we watched Hope Mill Theatre's Rent. So one of the management graduates, Faye, was working on it. Right. We'd actually booked to go and see it twice and just never got there. So we watched a live stream of that, and I sat there and I said, I'd pay 50 quid. I'd pay what I would pay to actually sit in the theatre. I know that I'm sat at home, but I can watch it. And going back to when you're saying how it's the pay what you can, pay what you want, and obviously you're trying to represent underrepresented groups. This is going to help people that maybe can't afford to go to the theatre. Yeah,
I think the online thing as well brings in a lot of people that couldn't access theatre before. So then it is bringing in a whole new group of people and exposing them to this. Every single day.
That's why we do what we do. We want to get the word out there. We normally either have a micro political message, or we want to just share some joy, or tell stories that aren't normally heard in those communities. And the only way to do that is normally to go physically to those communities. But as we now know from this year, if you can get something online and people have access to internet, anyone can enjoy theatre and access theatre. And I just think what a great thing that is. I think that it's a shame that it's taken to this point for us to realise that theatre can be for everyone and should be for everyone. So,
and it's good for people that have got like ourselves, very busy schedules, that say there's a show that's only got a 5-day run, or it's got a 2-week run, and you're out of the country or you're somewhere else and you can't make it, by making it accessible online for a smaller fee, it's exposing a heck of a lot more people to theatre.
Absolutely.
And I mean, Hope Mill got absolutely raving reviews from everyone's couch. It's
amazing. And I think what was so special about that show, and I mean, I'm still smiling about it now, and I'm going to pay again to watch another live stream of it.
Yeah,
honestly, I never thought I could enjoy live stream like I did. The way that how creatively they did it that was the genius part. It wasn't just a single camera setup and you watch the play. That's fine, and that absolutely works for some performances, especially smaller pieces. A one man or one person show, or a duologue or something. But you felt like you were in it. It was just amazingly done, and that was to say, if you were at that theatre anyway, because of the way that the stage was set and the design, it was so beautiful and eloquent that it just meant you felt part of something. And I think that's what we've all been missing, isn't it, during this time as well? Everyone's felt isolated and lonely. And it was just such a celebration, and I can't wait to see it again.
Definitely. So you were saying that both of the companies are subsidised by the Arts Council. Obviously, the Arts Council have taken a hit during COVID as well. Has that affected you in any way, or...?
I'm safe to say, no, it hasn't, not directly. We know that there is fiercer competition now for funding. I think initially, though, when the Arts Council in, I think it was March, when the first lockdown happened, they effectively suspended all project grants and anything that was due to have a decision, because they knew no live work was going to happen. So that was a bit of a like, oh, okay, we need to step back and reset. Like, how do we think about any project if we don't know how to get the money for it? And then when the funding reopened and they said it had actually an increase of an injection of funding from the government to fund more digital work, and creatively working, it was a really nice surprise to see. And I think there was, at the start, there probably wasn't that much competition, because people getting a project ready, even a digital project, it takes time. So as soon as it opened, that's when we applied for our development of Sappho, and we got it. And normally you wait 6 weeks for an under £15,000 bid to find your outcome. We found out in 2 weeks, and it was amazing. We just put the bid in. 2 weeks later, we get the yes. I was like, that's really something. They're being so reactive, so that was great. The only way we were sort of a bit adversely affected was that we didn't receive our emergency grant money that we applied for initially. So before the Cultural Recovery Fund, there was the absolute emergency, how the money just to keep people in post and so on. But I think with both jobs, we work with freelancers. Everyone on the core team's freelance. We're all self-employed. So that scheme maybe necessarily wasn't for us. That was about protecting jobs. And then obviously when they announced the self-employed income support scheme, that obviously then massively helped all the freelancers we were working with. So it protected us all.
Has COVID changed your mind on wanting to be a freelance artist at all, or?
I mean, at the start of the pandemic, and like in March, when we had to cancel the show, and I had like 2 other projects that were going to be happening this autumn, one would have happened right now, and we just had to pull the plug on them. I was really thinking this year could be the year. This is going to be the testing year. I might get through. And I was seeing that sort of left, right, and centre, and especially for the bigger theatres in particular that got massively hit and having to make redundancies and lay people off. It was heartbreaking to see. But actually, you know what? Like I feel like I've risen to the challenge a bit, and I've enjoyed making work in this way. It's a different way of working, but just the fact that we can access more audiences and in a unique way, I think that's a great thing. So I'm not going to stop working in this way. I think I absolutely can't wait to have my first live show back on, whenever that might be. But I think I'll always now look at digital projects moving forward, just to sit alongside the touring work and so on, and making all the work that we do physically accessible via the internet. So either making sure there was a designated live stream performance night or a recording of it or something like that. It's not something I've really thought about on the smaller scale, but moving forward, it's exciting.
You see on Twitter a lot of creatives saying now that everything's online, it's going to ruin the industry. There's going to be no theatres and nothing. But I don't know anyone that's in our industry or a fan of our industry that won't now not go to the theatre. I mean, we've had about 50 tickets for everything that we've booked cancelled, and then when it announces, oh, actually we're going back on again, we'll book again,
and then it gets cancelled.
So obviously, with what you were saying, having digitally working alongside live theatre, I don't think it's ever going to take away from live theatre.
No, I don't think so at all. I think everyone's, they're crying out for cultural engagement, and in any sort of capacity, we're accepting the digital work right now because that's all we can get. And everyone turns to sort of Netflix and movies and all these sorts of stuff. Like we want media, we want creativity to keep us happy, to keep us entertained. For all those reasons, I think there'll be a massive surge, and in terms of popularity of theatre, I think we'll be at an all-time high once there's no social distancing. I think the only thing right now is obviously some theatres can open in Liverpool and in London and so on. That's great, but it's still not necessarily an experience that people, not everyone wants. They don't necessarily want to wear a face mask the entire time of performance and have to follow all those protocols. But I think once that ends and once we're in a better place, I think it will be at an all-time high popularity, and that's so exciting.
I think as well, like our industry it's a tough game, and like you were saying, in London, there's obviously the monopoly of producers who, they're top dog and they run it in a way. And I found through Twitter that as an industry, we're just literally reaching out for anyone. So someone will just be like, I need a costume designer, and the amount of tweets that you see of people being like this person, and I think that it's hopefully making the industry a bit more of a collaborative,
a lot more connected.
Yeah.
I not just using people.
Yeah, I really feel like that, actually. I think, it's a divisive time in a way, in the fact that, especially right now with different cities being in different tiers, that's really difficult because my heart goes out to all those producers and stuff in Manchester who can't put those shows on, but they can in Liverpool, and it's a really tricky time. But I do think people have become kinder since the pandemic, and especially people in the industry. There's just more empathy, there's more understanding. People are going to take time. Like I said, I think earlier, it was a time for us to stop and reflect and press pause and realise what's important to us as producers. What do we need as artists? How do we protect artists? How do we nurture them better? And then, how do we just make work in a nicer environment?
So obviously we've just had a cohort graduate and we'll be graduating this year. Any advice to anyone going into the industry at this time?
I mean, that's a tough one because obviously I didn't have to navigate my way through that when I was graduating. But I think by the time you graduate, in next summer, I think that will be the most exciting time the industry's ever had. I think there'll be opportunities galore. I really do. I think there'll be more, engagement opportunities. There'll be more internships, there'll be more placements. There'll be more opportunities and pathways for people from all over to get involved in the industry because, again, of this popularity thing. I just think it'll just be really popular. This is my hope. In an ideal world, it'll be really popular. There'll be loads of people will be spending money to come see shows, and therefore that trickle-down effect of, helping younger artists and stuff will be seen. That's all we can hope for, I think. And yeah, just good luck.
I think we'll have settled sort of into the new norm of how the theatre world will run as well by then. So I think it'll be a lot more, not easier for us, but as opposed to if we were going into it this point now, it will, there'll be a lot more help from other people.
I think so as well, definitely.
And our last question, just to round up, what is next for both of your companies and what should everybody look out for?
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, so for Emmerson Award, we are currently developing a new football and politics-based play at Live Theatre in Newcastle. So we were one of their bursary recipients this year to develop this new idea. So we'll be going into development with that next year, hopefully the COVID secure way. So it won't be digital. We'll be doing it in person again because it's a cast of 4. So we just don't want to just do Zoom. We'll put that up until late spring until we know it's going to be okay for theatre to be open. So that'll be development phase. The actual show for that probably happen in 2022, which feels like a lifetime away, but it's all right. And Box of Tricks, for the next year, it's a really exciting time for us. It's our probably biggest year ever in terms of professional development and outreach. So we've just got a ton of new opportunities for writers, and we've got a new cohort of pen pals and of Playbox and things like that. So our next year for Box of Tricks, we'll be developing potentially up to 7 new plays next year, and then starting to think about programming for theatre. So I think our next physical production could happen next autumn. That's the aim. But yeah, watch this space.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for talking to us today, Max.
No problem at all. Very welcome.
And we will drop all of your socials below so everyone can give Box of Tricks and Emmerson Ward a follow. And we look forward to seeing everything that you get up to.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for inviting me on.
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.